Hello and welcome to another video. Today is a special day because it is time for E3 2018 predictions. These are my E3 2018 predictions. We're going to go through each company of all of the major press conferences that are going to be taking place. I'm going to give you my predictions for each one, what I think is going to happen. Remember that these are my opinions and my opinions alone, and that your opinion may differ from mine. Now, we're not going to do these in any order. We're just going to start. I want to start today with Microsoft because I think Microsoft, out of every other press conference, has the most to prove going into E3 2018. You know, Microsoft already has the most powerful console on the market with the Xbox One X. They've proven that they have the power, but now they need to put their money where their mouth is. They need to start putting out exclusive games. Now, yes, there are services on the Xbox One that are very awesome that other platforms don't have. I think Xbox Game Pass is an incredible service that if you own an Xbox, you should at least look into. I don't want to make this like a commercial for that. I'm not getting paid by Microsoft to talk about anything here, but Xbox Game Pass is $9.99 a month, and you get to choose from over 100 different titles that you can download to your system, and that's the key here. You download these, you don't stream them like PlayStation Now, and it's constantly changing. It's like a Netflix for games. I've been using this service since January, and I really like it a lot. I think Microsoft is going to hammer home the value of Xbox Game Pass at E3 this year, and you have to also remember that all first-party Microsoft titles come to Game Pass a day and date with their release in the retail market. That being said, I think Microsoft's going to open big with something new, and I think if I was Microsoft and I wanted to do some sort of jaw-drop moment for their press conference, I think you open with the long-rumored new Fable game that is being made by Playground Studios, the makers of the Forza Horizon franchise. Now, I personally have never been a huge fan of the Fable franchise. I like the original Fable a lot, and I thought they got weaker as they went on, but I think the idea of a new Fable game potentially made by someone that isn't Lionhead Studios has me very excited. I think Peter Molyneux had to do a lot with the downfall of this franchise, and I think this could potentially be very interesting going forward. I'm very excited to see what happens here going on with Fable, but I think you will get this announced and it'll be a fall 2019 release. Next up, we have some of the more known quantities here. Obviously, we're going to talk about Forza Horizon 4. That'll release this fall. Gears of War 5 is probably coming fall 2019. I think you announce it here at this E3. And then one of the bigger elephants in the room for Microsoft is Halo 6. Going into fall 2018, this would be the 3-year mark, and the time is right for a new entry in Halo. However, we've seen or heard nothing about Halo 6, just rumblings. And with 343 Studios trying to once again fix and patch the Master Chief Collection now to the point that they're going to add 4K support for the Xbox One X, which is awesome, and I can't wait for that because I want to replay through those core 4 games again once they do so. I think that this is the time to announce a Halo 6. Look, man, I'm an old school Halo fan. All I want from Halo 6 is a Master Chief centered story with the awesome multiplayer of Halo 5 imported in, and maybe add a new mode. You know, I really liked Warzone in Halo 5. I thought it was an awesome mode. I could totally see them doing a Battle Royale mode for Halo. It's been kind of rumored, so it'd be interesting to see if that's happening. But I think Halo 6 is announced here for a fall 2018 release, and I think it has its big coming out party at E3 this year. I think out of all of the press conferences, Microsoft is the one that has to have the most surprises. Obviously, they'll have some third-party games here with some deals that they've already discussed here. They'll show things like Metro again and so on and so forth. But I think they need to have some big new IP surprises here, stuff that we don't know about, we haven't heard about. They need to have something that is earth-shattering, that gets people talking, much like something we've seen on Sony's stage, or something like a Death Stranding or a Last of Us or something like that. Microsoft needs a new IP, and they need it really badly right now. I feel like this is the E3 where you're going to get a couple announcements of new IPs, of stuff that we weren't expecting that look absolutely stunning. Also, for third-party support, I think this is where you get your Splinter Cell announcement trailer, because Microsoft has a long, storied history with the Splinter Cell franchise. I think this is where it is announced. Michael Ironside obviously is back. here's a new Splinter Cell game. I think it's literally just going to be called Splinter Cell, and I think you will see kind of the reveal trailer on Microsoft's stage, and then they will heavily dive into it at Ubisoft's press conference later in the day. Finally, the one other elephant in the room I have to discuss when it comes to Microsoft is, of course, Crackdown 3. Crackdown 3 hasn't released yet. Still, this was a game that was announced for a November 7th, 2017 release date, day and date, with the Xbox One X, and then it got pushed to spring, and now we've heard nothing about this game whatsoever. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Crackdown. I'm still excited about Crackdown 3. I think it could potentially be a sleeper hit for the platform, and I really enjoyed the original Crackdown. Crackdown 2 not so much. I think this could be an awesome game, but we need to quote-unquote shit or get off the pot with this game, and this game really needs to come out. So I think this is the one game I could potentially see a surprise drop, mic drop moment of, hey, Crackdown 3 is available now if you have Game Pass, or it comes out next week retail. I think Microsoft could totally do this at E3, and I think it would be a potential show-stopping moment for them. However, I also can see them not saying anything about Crackdown at E3, and if that happens, Crackdown might be a game that's dead in the water. I don't know. I think out of all the other shows we're going to see, Microsoft has the most that they have to prove going into E3 2018. Now that we've corrected the Xbox One, we have the better hardware now. We have the better machine on Microsoft's side. We need the games. And I think E3 2018 is going to be telling for the future of the Xbox One platform. Are we going to get these games that Phil Spencer has kind of been promising for a while, or is it just going to be another thud in the water? Next up on the list here is Sony. Sony, unfortunately, is going to kind of do what they did last year, which I thought was incredibly disappointing, and I thought they had a bad E3 last year. They're only going to focus on core games that are coming out within the next year, which potentially is smart, but we're now getting to the point where these games that were announced years ago are starting to finally come out. I would like to look ahead to the future of what else the PlayStation 4 has coming in the future. And unfortunately, this time they're just going to talk about some of their core games. We're going to talk about Last of Us 2. We're going to see things about Ghost of Tsushima, which is the new, and I know I probably butchered the name of that. That's the new Sucker Punch game that looks pretty incredible. It looks almost kind of like an Onimusha type game. That could be really cool. They're going to talk about Death Stranding. Yes, they're going to talk about Death Stranding. This one really surprises me. Also, Spider-Man, which comes out in September, so that's exciting. However, there are some things I think that need to be discussed here. Blue Point Games, the people that made the excellent remake of Shadow of the Colossus that came out this past February, have already announced they're working on the biggest and largest in scope remake they've ever made for the PlayStation 4. I think it gets announced here at E3. I think you get whatever From Software's next game that they teased last year at the Game Awards will be announced on Sony's stage, whatever that could be. Is it another Dark Souls? Is it a Bloodborne sequel, which I would love if it was a Bloodborne sequel? We don't know yet. Smaller things I think will be talked about. Spyro has to show up on Sony's stage at some point because of the history with Spyro the Dragon. Also, I would love to see the Medieval remake that they announced at PlayStation Experience last December. I think Medieval gets its time here. I think if you're going to show Rocksteady's new game, which is rumored to be the Superman game that we've all been waiting for, I think here is the place that you announce it for a 2019 release. Obviously, you'll see Black Ops 4 here because Sony has the marketing deal with them. You'll also see Red Dead Redemption here, but I don't think you'll see that much of Red Dead Redemption because Rockstar does their own thing with their own games. They don't really have to cater to anybody. And then finally, I think the time is now, and at each press conference, I kind of want to pick one thing I really, really want to happen. Here is where you announce a date with a trailer and screenshots and everything, and show us Resident Evil 2 Remake, because it's been almost 3 years. We've seen nothing of that game. So Resident Evil 2 Remake, that's my big prediction for Sony's press conference, that it has a coming out. Next, we're going to move on to Nintendo. Now, Nintendo has an interesting thing going on because part of their show has potentially been leaked, so we're going to discuss that one in a little more detail here. Now, Nintendo, obviously, they're going to have their online service launch in September, and that seems potentially interesting and also on the cheap, so I'm more interested in it. I'm interested in it for the fact that it will have the ability for cloud saves in case something ever happens to my Switch. However, I'm also interested in it because they're going to have classic Nintendo games come to that platform, and some of them will be playable for the first time ever online, and that's potentially awesome. So they'll talk about that service a little bit. I think you'll get a trailer for Metroid Prime 4. They're going to talk about Metroid Prime 4 here. They're going to show it. That's going to be really exciting. That's a fall 2019 game easily. Another big game here they're going to talk about is Pokemon for the Switch. What is Pokemon for the Switch? We know it's going to be the new main entry Pokemon game for this platform, but we don't know anything else about it. They're going to show it off here. That's really exciting. I still think that could be up in the air. It could be a fall 2018 game, but more than likely it's a fall 2019 game. The biggest Wii U game that I've wanted to come over to the Nintendo Switch that hasn't happened yet is Super Mario Maker, and I think this is the E3 where it gets announced for a fall 2018 release. I can easily see this game coming to the Switch. It's the biggest game from the Wii U that hasn't come over to the Switch yet, I feel, and this will be really awesome if they do it. I've seen some rumors that a new Fire Emblem is in the works for fall 2018. They could announce this here. I'd love to see a return to the Advance Wars series. I think that in the last couple of years we've had our due with Fire Emblem between Awakening, Fates, and Shadows of Valencia. All great and excellent 3DS games. And while the potential for a actual name entry in the Fire Emblem franchise on the Nintendo Switch is awesome because I want to play it handheld and docked, I think that a return to Advance Wars would be more interesting at this time, but I'll play a new Fire Emblem game because I love that franchise. Finally, we got to talk about Smash Brothers. As I've told you guys on the channel before, I'm not a huge Smash Brothers fan. I've played these games as they've come out, but I've never really had the appeal for them that everybody else seems to have. I think they're cool games, but they're a little too chaotic for a fighting game for my taste. I'm more of a Mortal Kombat person, but that's me. However, they're going to talk about Smash Brothers here. The big question is this a brand new Smash Brothers built with a new engine, or is this Super Smash Brothers for the Wii U ported up to the Nintendo Switch? We'll find out at E3. That's going to be very interesting to see. And then finally, and this is my big prediction that may or may not come true for Nintendo, I think we're going to get a revival of another long dormant franchise. What that is, I don't know. Maybe it's Earthbound, maybe it's F-Zero, I don't know. But the time is ripe for something that's been dead for a long time to come back. And the Switch is a massively successful Nintendo platform, and I think this would be potentially awesome. And the time is right for something that's been dead to come back. What that could be, we'll find out at E3. Those are my predictions for Nintendo. Let's talk about Bethesda. Bethesda in the last couple years has been very interesting, and it's been fun to watch them kind of rise to prominence with their E3 showcases. You know, they had a big one in 2015 for Fallout, and then it was interesting the next year when they didn't really have what I would say was a huge big game, but they had several smaller titles that ended up being pretty big, and they kept going with their showcases, and they've become one of the more fun E3 showcases to watch every year. So, and I think E3 2018 is potentially even more interesting. What I love about the Bethesda press conference as opposed to every other press conference is they are incredibly direct, and they keep everything within a year window. So they'll come out and they'll say, hey, between now and next June, these are the games we have slated coming out. They will be out before next June, and then they're off to the races and they show you what's coming out. This year, obviously, the biggest one that's been kind of rumored and leaked, unfortunately, is Rage 2. This is a shocking reveal for me personally because I didn't think Rage was that well received. It was an okay game. It was a pretty good shooter, but unfortunately there was too much racing involved with this game that I just didn't care for it. I think there's a potential there with id Tech 5 to make a really interesting sequel to this game, and I'd be more than willing to play an id Tech 5 made sequel to Rage with that technology that was used in Doom, and this could be really cool and it's really exciting to see, but it's just kind of shocking at the same time. My big one that I want to see, obviously Doom 2, a sequel to 2016 Doom, which was my game of the year that year. I would love to see a sequel. I'm clamoring for a sequel to Doom. It was massively successful, incredibly well received. It was the best game of 2016, in my opinion personally, and I want to see a sequel to it. The time is right to announce it, and I totally think it's something that could come out next spring. However, if they wanted to take an extra year to make that game, I also wouldn't be upset either. Another big thing I think they're going to talk about is, much like Dishonored 2 got a standalone DLC content release that actually came out physically, I think Prey is going to get the same thing here. Prey was also very successful. As you guys know on my channel, I bought the game for PC. I could never get the PC version to work on my computer for some reason. It just never wanted to. I updated my video card, and I think it technically will work with my new video card now, but I haven't really tried. I recently re-picked it up on the Xbox One, and I'm hoping that since Bethesda has done excellent work with Xbox One X enhancing some of their other titles like Fallout, Skyrim Special Edition, and Doom now, I think Prey is long overdue for an Xbox One X enhancement patch. Once that happens, I will be playing Prey, and I will do a review at some point on the channel to kind of make up for what happened with Prey last year on the channel. But I think the time is right for that. It's been rumored for a while that they were going to do a standalone content release for this game, and I think this is the time to announce it. Finally, I think Switch has been very successful for Bethesda. They put out Skyrim and Doom on the Switch last fall. They're putting out Wolfenstein in a couple weeks here on the Switch. Wolfenstein 2, that is. And I think they will announce Fallout for the Switch. Now, whether this is Fallout 3 New Vegas or Fallout 4, who's to say? But if we live in a world where Skyrim can run on the Nintendo Switch, I fully think that Fallout 4 can run on the Nintendo Switch. And I think a lot of Switch owners would love to play Fallout on the go. So I think that could potentially be announced. I also think that Prey could come to the Nintendo Switch. Those are kind of my guesses for stuff to round out Bethesda's press conference. Obviously, they'll talk about other things like the Elder Scrolls Online and the Elder Scrolls Legends, which is their card game that is also pretty successful, but for the most part, they're going to stick to everything that is released between now and next June. Next, let's talk about Ubisoft. Ubisoft's going to have an interesting press conference this year because we're in an off year where there shouldn't be a new Assassin's Creed. They could talk about it, but I think they're going to stick to the biannual release, and that's really worked wonders for them. Assassin's Creed Origins was an excellent game, and I would love to see them stick to a biannual release for the franchise because I think it really helped. That being said, as I said earlier, a new Splinter Cell has to be on the way. You do not get Michael Ironside back to voice Sam Fisher for just some DLC for another game. You have to get him back at that capacity, remind people of how great Splinter Cell is to announce a new game. And I think, well, Microsoft will have the reveal on their stage because of their long-standing history with the franchise. Ubisoft's press conference will have a huge coming out party for the new game. I think it will just be called Splinter Cell, and I think it'll be a back-to-basics game with Sam Fisher. Really excited. This is one of my potentially show-stealing moments for the entirety of E3. I would love to see a return to Splinter Cell. I didn't like Blacklist. I didn't play Blacklist for the reasons of, you know, a different voice actor voicing the character of Sam Fisher made absolutely no sense. We now know 5 years later the reason for this was because Michael Ironside had cancer and he couldn't do it. Even though still that game just doesn't make sense to me. The last good Splinter Cell game that I really enjoyed was Conviction, and I would really like to see a sequel or just to kind of a soft reboot, but with holding Michael Ironside still as Sam Fisher, and I think that's exactly what 2018 Splinter Cell will be. They're briefly going to talk about The Crew 2. They'll talk about their Year 2 season content for Rainbow Six Siege and also for Ghost Recon. The last two things they'll talk about, there is a Watch Dogs 3. I think that's your fall 2018 game for Ubisoft. I'm very excited to see what it is. As you guys know, I did not like Watch Dogs 1, really liked Watch Dogs 2, so Watch Dogs 3 could go anywhere. I'm interested to see what they do with it. And then finally, I think also the time is right for a Prince of Persia revival. This could be something that they announce this year. However, if we are getting a Splinter Cell announcement, then they may hold and do a Prince of Persia revival next E3. Next, let's talk about Square Enix. Square Enix this year, they are doing a Nintendo Direct-like approach where it's going to be about an hour press conference, and they have a lot to talk about. Most importantly, they're going to talk about Kingdom Hearts 3. I'm personally not a Kingdom Hearts fan. I've never played any of those games. I'm not a real Disney fan. I just don't have an interest in Kingdom Hearts, and I get the appeal of it, but it's not for me. However, I think Kingdom Hearts will be their big focus of their little Nintendo Direct-like thing, and I think it will be announced for a fall 2018 release. However, I think that release will get pushed to spring 2019 because the game's just not there yet. I think there's no mention of Final Fantasy VII Remake with everything that's happened recently with them kind of doing a new studio for that game, it just doesn't make sense that they would have anything to show on it. I think you'll get more announcements of Final Fantasy 14 and 15 content. Tokyo RPG Factory, which was that new studio they opened up to make kind of old school RPGs, has been very successful. We got the very well received I Am Setsuna and Lost Sphere. I think another new RPG will be announced for a January 2019 release. This time I would really hope to see that the game comes to Xbox One as well. You've seen these games hit PlayStation 4 and Switch. Xbox owners, they need RPGs as well. They're starving for them. You know, I thought it was awesome recently that Ys Origin came out for the Xbox One, and I encourage people who have never played an Ys game to pick that game up, because if you guys go out and you pick up Ys Origin and enough sales of that game happen, then Ys 8, which I've currently been playing on the PlayStation 4, will come out to the Xbox One, and it's an incredible game. And if you're starving for an RPG and you're just a sole Xbox One owner, Ys Origin is a great game. Sorry about the little commercial for Ys. However, Tokyo RPG Factory, they're going to have a new game coming out. Finally, Square Enix will talk about Octopath Traveler. That's coming out on the Switch July 13th. Makes sense for them to kind of have a final push for that game before it releases the following month. And then finally, we'll talk about EA. I don't really have a lot to say about EA. EA is going to have their push with all their sports games. That's a known quantity. I don't even need to discuss that. I think they avoid Need for Speed this year because last year's was a travesty. They've obviously already announced they're going to be talking about Battlefield V or 5 or whatever it's called. There'll be a big presentation about that game. I would predict that that's 20 to 25 minutes of their press conference is devoted to Battlefield 5. They're also going to be talking heavily about Anthem. As you guys know, Anthem is predicted for a 2019 release. They say spring right now. I think it'll be a fall 2019 release. And then, does Dragon Age get talked about? I think they steer away from Dragon Age this year because they want to avoid any situations that are similar to Mass Effect Andromeda. But I think that will be coming, and they'll talk more about that at a later date, and they're going to focus on Anthem. Finally, they did announce they'll be talking about Unravel 2, and then I think, personally, the time is right for a reveal trailer for Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 3. This franchise has been massively successful, and it's very family-friendly. These games sell very well, and I think it's time, especially if you look at the timeline, this would be the time to announce a Garden Warfare 3, and I think you can also put this game out on the Switch now, and it will sell like hotcakes on the Switch. And then finally, there'll be a new EA Originals game. You know, first it was Unraveled. We're getting an Unraveled 2. Last year they announced The Way Out. That was a tremendously awesome game. I think this year they'll have something new and exciting from EA Originals, and that's going to be potentially interesting as well, and probably the show stealer of the EA press conference. So those are my E3 2018 predictions. I'd love to hear in the comments below what your predictions are for E3 this year. What you think is going to happen, what you think is going to be discussed, what surprises you think there are going to be. I love it every year. As I will tell you guys right now, the plan for my E3 video content on the channel is as follows. I will be doing four videos. I'm going to be doing a wrap-up video for each company, so each big console company that is. So I'll be doing the E3 video and a grade for Microsoft, for Sony, and for Nintendo, and then the fourth video is going to have kind of the other companies lumped into one. So we'll have Bethesda, Square Enix, EA, and Ubisoft, and we'll do that as the fourth video. It's going to be a very busy video week for me that week, but I look forward to doing it every single year that I do it. Cannot wait. Anyways, guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and as always, until next time.